You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. Thank you for flying CX Passport Airlines today. We've reached 10,000 feet, so feel free to lower that tray table. It's a 13-hour flight to Tokyo, so man, oh man, I hope you brought a book. Yeesh! That is an announcement we realistically could have heard. All right, maybe without the saltiness at the end. In another earlier era of long-haul flying, I actually remember flying in a DC-10 as a kid and being really excited that it had this one screen for a movie at the front of the cabin. It was a movie that I certainly didn't get to choose and what likely was incredibly dated, but oh, there it was. How thankful are we that we have in-flight entertainment now? Can I get an amen? Well, do you ever think about how that in-flight entertainment comes together? How is content selected? How is it delivered? How does technology keep up? How does the overall, dare I say it, experience come together? That's exactly what today's guest, Corinne Streichert, obsesses over. With years of experience in the airline industry, Corinne, now through her firm, Effective LLC, consults with a wide range of clients to ensure a great in-flight experience. And of course, you know that Corinne's going to have some great travel stories that we'll talk about. As a pre-pandemic, very frequent flyer, I can't begin to tell you how thankful I am for Corinne. I am eager to hear her stories today. Corinne, welcome to CX Passport.
Thanks, Rick. It's an honor to be here today. Huge fan of your show.
Ah, thanks. Those are kind words. Gets me all excited. Just starting off here. You got me with a smile. Well, before we even talk about in-flight entertainment, you've had quite a run of customer service and customer experience career growth, now primarily in the airline industry. Tell me a little bit about your customer experiences, especially around the contact center.
That's right. I first started out working in contact centers many years ago back in Australia. I won't date myself, but I was straight out of university and I joined a relatively new telecommunications company at the time. Looking back, it was one of the best learning experiences, getting in as a contact center, representative and starting off there. It really gave me a great insight into the business and really how important customer service is to the success of a business. What was kind of really interesting about this company is that they were really one of the first back in Australia to make customer service a product in itself. It was one of their key features. It was how they differentiated themselves in the marketplace back in the 90s and 2000s in Australia, where they were introducing competition into the telecommunications space, which was previously a monopoly. So they found that, creating customer service as a product, offering that exceptional experience with the customers, following through on customer issues as they call in, not keeping the customer unnecessarily, on hold for a long time, making it a great experience to be able to resolve those issues. So it was quite interesting, and they were very successful at doing that.
Yeah.
And again, this was many years ago back in Australia, but that was one of the best experiences. And even today, I do recommend to some people that I kind of coach and mentor. It's a great place to start a career, to get into a business.
That is something that when I've talked to folks from customer experience, I didn't come out of the contact center environment. And I think I missed out on something. I came out of a process improvement operation sort of area and had to learn that customer service and get exposed to it later. But there's so much value in coming out of that. The folks that come out of that space really seem to have that we hear it way too much, but it's still true, that empathetic heart for the customer, because they've had to listen to those customers on the other end of whatever that contact center mechanism is.
Absolutely. I mean, you do really have, and that's something that over the years I think has stuck with me. Whenever I'm developing products or experiences, it's like, okay, who is this for? And what, and trying to address the issues, that you anticipate that they may have, and also you think of your front line. And I tend to always think of, the ones fielding those calls because, to have a successful product, you need a successful team that can successfully answer the questions and really support the customer. So again, it was a great insight, and I felt it was a great way to start my career and helped to make me better at offering products and services that customers can use and that our teams can support.
Gosh, you realize we could spend the entire episode just talking about that. There's so many things that you said in there. Yeah, talking about how just coming out of the contact center is so great. And then also the idea of customer experience as a product. And let me use that as perhaps a way to take us to the main point of what I'm hoping to talk about today. And that's that in-flight experience, that in-flight entertainment. So it's become incredibly important to just the overall experience. And many would argue it's just simply a base expectation that there is in-flight entertainment there. How did you make that pivot? How did you find yourself getting into the world of in-flight entertainment?
Yeah, it was almost kind of by accident. I mean, I started off supporting contact centers back in the airline business, and then through, opportunities and change, transitioned to a group within product marketing that was focused on emerging technologies many years ago. I have a passion for technology and how we can use it to improve our products and services. So that's kind of how I got into in-flight entertainment in the very early days, when in-flight Wi-Fi was starting to become a thing. There was what we call air-to-ground service that had recently launched, but I worked on the first satellite Wi-Fi installations and products for a North American airline.
Really?
So that's kind of what got me. Yeah, it was a really interesting time, very, very exciting. To be involved in that. And it was quite interesting at the time. It was starting to come out in the industry. Everybody was saying, oh, this is going to be the death of seatback screens. Everybody's going to want to have a device. But as history has shown us in time, that is not the case. And I don't feel that's happening anytime soon. But that's kind of how I got into this space, a passion for technology, taking up an opportunity to get into a emerging technologies group within product marketing, which led to the Wi-Fi and led to the overall various types of in-flight entertainment products.
I'm actually trying to channel a memory that was probably around 1996. And I remember being just excited that there was a phone on a plane. Remember those phones that you'd put the credit card in, you'd walk up to the front of the cabin and you get that phone and then go back and make a call. And I remember, actually, I was an early consultant, and I was trying to find an excuse to be able to use the phone. It was probably, $10 a minute or something like that.
Yeah, they were quite costly.
And the thought of that first satellite Wi-Fi experience, it makes me realize how fast we've evolved. And so much of that, I'm sure, has to be you're listening to your customers, you're understanding what their needs are. And I'm thinking about that in the sense of content. Now, we talked about Wi-Fi there, but let's talk about content for a second. How does an airline even choose the content that goes into in-flight entertainment? And what do the partnerships look like? How do they bring that to the customer?
Yeah, it's quite a process, and it can involve many players. It really depends on what form of entertainment is available. At the moment, there are a lot of various types of entertainment available in flight on different carriers, whether it's streaming, entertainment embedded, or the airline might offer devices to customers with preloaded content. You might have live television. So each of those different products have different ways of acquiring that content. But I guess probably at a very high kind of level, I'd say, there's a lot of people involved, a team, a content committee, working with third-party content providers, distributors of content, who source it on behalf of the airline, works with system providers to get the content, any related metadata loaded or made available within the various systems. So a lot of partnerships, on the distributor side, hardware provider side, and there are groups that focus on this type of service as well in terms of curating content and partnering with the airlines to deliver that to their customers. So unfortunately, there isn't like an easy answer because there's so many ways of doing it, but definitely involves a lot of great people, a lot of time and a lot of effort to carefully select the content that your customers will enjoy.
Customers will enjoy, and probably also there's a sensitivity element to it, to making sure that it's content that is, well, at least reasonably appropriate to be consumed on a plane. I just can't even imagine going through all that, and then also needing to refresh it on a recurring basis. Is that something that you find has been somewhat of a challenge in the in-flight entertainment space, is making sure that things are fresh enough for customers, especially one that might be, say, a frequent traveler that's on there at least twice a week and maybe even more often on the same plane?
Yeah, historically refreshing the content was a challenge, particularly with embedded systems. It's quite a process to get that content. On average, you'll see within the industry, it can be refreshed, I guess, over the years, over a month to 2 month period because of what's involved to do that. But as now with technology, the ability to load content wirelessly, or if it's a streaming product coming through the
Yeah.
internet, you have the ability to really shake it up very quickly. So technology is bringing a lot of benefits to the industry to make it more real time, make it easier to be able to load that content. But again, it depends on the type of entertainment offering on board and how that gets updated. But definitely quite a process.
Well, I'm very thankful for that process being in place.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Now I'm gonna put you inside the seat now. You've been talking about how you create the great content for those of us that are sitting in the seat. Let's put you in the seat now. You mentioned working for Qantas. You've also, I know, have worked for United. You've got a lot of airline industry background there. I've got to imagine that that's provided some really great global travel stories. I joke, it's one thing for folks here in the U.S. to say, hey, let's go to Vegas for the weekend. But you could reasonably do that from Australia, couldn't you?
Absolutely, yes. A little secret, not a secret, actually, people that know me know this. I used to, born and raised in Australia, proudly Australian, started working for the airlines in Sydney, and it was like just doors opening for me. It's like, wow, I could go, anywhere really I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I have to say, I had youth on my side. And it's amazing what you can do when you're youthful. But yes, I used to come to, Los Angeles and, Las Vegas, pretty much the West Coast for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
How I would do that, I'd take a holiday or vacation day on a Friday and a Monday. I'd leave Sydney Friday morning. I'd arrive in the US Friday morning because of the time difference, have the weekend, Sunday be back at the airport, so do 2 nights in the US, and then arrive into Sydney Tuesday morning around 6 a.m. And I was fortunate that my office was just across the road from the airport. So get in the cab, get to the office, have a shower downstairs in the office, and be sitting at my desk at 8:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, ready to start work. How the rest of the day unfolded, though, was quite interesting. But again, the key criteria to pulling that off is youth. And it was very many years ago. I was very young at the time and single, no responsibilities. But it was a fantastic opportunity. To see the world, being born and raised in Australia, everywhere kind of seems really far.
Yeah.
And then having the opportunity to, work for an airline, and that opened up so many opportunities. I thought, okay, this chance will never come again. Let's just make the most of it. I traveled a lot, when I was within Australia, and just made the most of the opportunities to see as much of the world as I could before obviously getting older and settling down.
I think that sounds like such the fantasy to those of us that do enjoy travel. The thought of being able to show up at the airport and look at the board and go, where do I want to go today? And I remember asking that question of Lorena, who I think she was a podcast guest several episodes ago.
Yes.
And that small world of United, you and Lorena, I said the same thing. You're looking up at the board. Where is it that you want to go today? What a nice feeling that must be for the weekend. And we're talking about these big international trips. Okay, so Australia to the west coast of the U.S. But imagine there's a lot of places that, I'll pop over to, I don't know, Perth. Or I'll head to Melbourne for the weekend. Those are the kind of things that could be really fun to do.
Absolutely. And it just reminded me, my husband and I, when we were living on the east coast of the USA, had the weekends off and didn't have anything to do, we'd say, let's just go to the airport, look on the board for a name that we didn't recognize, see if we can get a seat and go. And the number of times we did that was like really, really fascinating. We ended up, I really got to see a lot of the USA. Obviously, for a weekend, we really wanted to keep it domestic, but or even into Canada or Mexico. But it's a great way to, see the world and see the US by doing it that way. And, I think anyone that has a passion for travel or exploration, I encourage them to explore opportunities in this industry.
Wow, Corinne, I love that thought. I love the idea of staring up at the board and saying, all right, let's just go there. But I got to imagine you've probably been in some situation where you're like, okay, this is enough travel. I need a little change of pace here. I need to hit the lounge. And so I'm going to invite you today. Why don't you join me here in the first class lounge? We will move quickly here and let's have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
I would have to say Athens. I had the privilege of going there just a few years ago. Oh, wow. I got to see the Panathenaic Stadium, which was the first Olympic stadium, the ancient theatre of Epidaurus, which is known to have the most perfect acoustics and aesthetics. It's an ancient Greek theatre. It was the most amazing city. I was there for about 2 days and did the tour. I recommend it. Just the history, and all the towns I got to visit. Fantastic.
Tell me about that. I would love to see all the sites, and of course, we didn't even talk about food, but the brilliant food there. But tell me about that acoustics. I've never heard that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's called the Ancient Theatre of Epidaurus, and it was one of the stops on one of the tours that I did. And it's an ancient stadium where the way it's constructed really enables incredible acoustics and aesthetics, and they didn't have microphones and all the technology that we have today. And our tour guide actually gave a demonstration the way it is built and designed. You could be in the middle and be surrounded by thousands of people, and the sound still carries up to the top level as if you're standing right in front of the person. It's just, I'm not doing it justice probably by the way I'm explaining it, but it was just so remarkable and incredible.
That is so cool.
One to add on, on the tour. It was amazing. Just everything about Athens was amazing, and the history, and to be able to see it and touch it. And the food obviously was great. I love baklava. Maybe I love it a bit too much.
We may be talking about food here in a little bit, but yeah, that's really neat. You have now given me a new destination to go to. Speaking of future trips, what is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
I'd probably say Seychelles.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Yeah, Seychelles is in the Indian Ocean. I've been fortunate enough to visit a lot of places, but unfortunately I've never got to Seychelles. I don't know if I mentioned my origins are from a tiny country in the Indian Ocean called Mauritius, where my family is from, but obviously born and raised in Australian, but Seychelles is north of that, and it's another tropical island destination and known for its beautiful beaches, everything I've read about it, and I've always wanted to go visit. And then have a look. So yeah, that would be the dream.
Well, the problem with me doing this show is now I have another destination that I want to get to. I do not recall hearing Seychelles yet, but I know I've heard about it. I want to go there. It definitely looks lovely. So yes, I agree with you on wanting to get there sometime in the future. We talked about food in Greece, but what is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
I did mention baklava, but I can't live off sweets. Unfortunately, I'd probably say lentils. I love everything about
Really?
Lentils. Yes, I believe it's a secret to eternal youth.
Okay.
I always used to say that when I was younger. It was just interesting. I'd always get asked for ID, even when I was, quite older. And they go, "Oh, you don't look your age." I go, "It's lentils." I really, I just love lentils cooked in so many different ways. And just really enjoy it. They're a great source of protein as well.
I have never, I can assure you, not once have I had somebody say lentils on favorite thing to eat. I'm used to hearing pasta, dessert, pizza, not lentils. I like that. Very good on you, Corinne. Well, I don't know where this is going to go then this next question. What is something your parents forced you to eat but you hated as a kid?
The thing that comes to mind, I'd probably say would be sheep's brains.
Oh, sheep's brain. Oh, yeah. Well, that would probably be something I wouldn't want to eat either.
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't know any better. And, as I got older, it's a thing in, certain countries, Africa, Middle East area, and the way it's cooked. But I remember as a child, the way it was prepared, it's like, "Oh, try it, eat it." And I'd eat, "Oh, yum, this is tasty. And what is it?" And then when I found out what it was like, "Okay, no thanks.
I'm out. That's it. Nope. Okay.
It's great for you. It's got lots of vitamins." But it's like, just thinking about it makes me want to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of things with vitamins. I'll go with something else. But yes, different cultures, different foods. I am not here to judge, but I'm not sure that I would try it. Well, I would try it. If I were asked to try it, I would, but I don't know that I would be enjoying it as well. So with all those travels that you've had, what is one travel item, not including your phone, that you will not leave home without?
I never leave home, I guess, without my little portable music studio. I think I'd mentioned to you, I do a lot of music and songwriting, and I found, especially when you're traveling, you never know when inspiration's going to hit. So you always find, I mean, that's probably one of the things I'd pack before lots of other things. I always like to travel with, my laptop, my equipment, and my gear, because as I said, you get inspired by the people, the places you see, and you never know when it's going to hit, and you want to capture that idea.
Corinne, that's really, really cool. I've heard a lot of great answers to that one, but I've not heard the music studio before. And I love that idea of bringing inspiration from where you are, the places you're traveling, the people you're interacting with. They have a different style. They have a different voice. They have a different experience. And that can be something that provides that inspiration for your music studio. That you can tell even in my words that you've got me stumbling, because I think that's really neat. It reminds me of something kind of related, and I've had a lot of great guests on CX Passport, one of whom was Kate Browse, and I think it's way back in episode 15. She opened my eyes to the disability community, even teaching me a hashtag nothing about us without us. And thinking of in-flight entertainment, that's got to be responsive to a wide range of abilities, languages, cultures. So how do you make sure the product in the airplane aligns with that spectrum of the customer base that's also inside that airplane?
Great question. Yeah, I did hear the podcast with Kate Browse, and she's doing some amazing work.
Isn't she?
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. And grateful she's doing that. So I think, really, really great. In terms of, making sure that, the products and services you offer do cater for customers of all these abilities, languages, and cultures, it's really involving the customer. You've got to know your customer. I think, to build a product, you're not building it for yourself. You're not building it for your leadership. Mm-hmm. You're building it for your customers, the people that will be, in the instance of in-flight entertainment, that will be flying, that will be traveling and consuming this content. You want to have a system that's easy to use, regardless of the customer's ability. And by customer's ability, I mean whether they have hearing, visual, or mobility challenges, or it may just be a language barrier. Mm-hmm. So, that system needs to be accessed and to be able to be used and interpreted from people of varying abilities. And the best way, is to include them in that development process every step of the way, from requirements gathering, testing, feedback sessions, and then post-implementation reviews. That is really, really critical to have a successful product that your customers can use.
How, that makes a lot of sense, having as wide of a community as you can as possible in your design, in your testing, in your evaluation. How do you make sure that that's bought in across the entire organization? Because I imagine that adds complexity. It might add cost in certain situations. How do you kind of ensure the whole organization is on board with making sure that the inputs of others are considered when it comes to in-flight entertainment?
Well, I guess I've been fortunate enough to work for companies that have put a priority on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have been supporters and advocates of, accessibility. So I've been really lucky. I wouldn't know of a company that hasn't kind of done that. But again, from my experience, I've been really lucky to have the full support of organizations. So going to present to stakeholders, getting buy-in across the group was really quite easy, because everybody realized it's the right thing to do. We need to cater for everybody regardless of ability. So it's never been a challenge for me. I haven't faced a situation where it's been a challenge to get that over the line. So I've been lucky.
That is really lucky, because there are plenty of companies out there, and it sounds like you have not worked for them, but there are plenty of companies out there that might say that is a focus area. And then the moment that the budget gets considered, certain elements of that get cut. And it's good to hear that was not the case for you. So I'm trying to think of it almost as I'm a customer, I'm on a plane, I'm experiencing my in-flight entertainment. And what my experience is, I don't know how the airline knows it. How are you helping those in the airline industry actually listen to the customer's voice? How are you bringing that customer's voice into the decisions that are made?
Firstly, I think to bring the customer's voice into the decision-making process, you need to listen to it. And how do you listen to it? You need to hear it, whether it's verbal, whether it's written. So there's obviously several feedback mechanisms and opportunities to engage with your customers on a day-to-day basis. But then there's also the opportunity of focus groups and working with various communities to be able to get representatives of those communities and bringing them in. I do recall on the projects that I've worked with actually meeting face-to-face with customers, going out to the airports, going to various community groups, associations, where, whether they're, trade shows or certain events to be able to speak one-on-one. I mean, granted, you can't have a conversation with everybody.
Sure.
But there's so many tools available to us, surveys, post-flight, pre-flight surveys. There's so many organizations that can help support in that way. So to be able to implement it, you need to hear it. And it's using those tools that are available to gather that feedback from your customers.
Got it. And it sounds like a key element of that is great. I listened to it, but now I'm going to do something with it. And that's a key element of getting that great in-flight entertainment that's matching what your customers really want. Now, I'm taking a look at the clock and we're getting close to being out of time, which disappoints me, but I do want to ask you one thing, and it's related to something that you had said earlier. You talked about how, I don't know that we're going necessarily, that everybody thought we were going to go to 100% bring your own device model, and now maybe that's not going to be the case, but I'm just sort of curious, the nuts and bolts of choosing an in-flight system. This is not easy. This is not like just going to, I'm going to joke here, going to Best Buy and buying a TV and slapping it in the back of a seat. How does that process work? And where do you see in-flight entertainment going?
Great question. Exactly. It's not easy. And I probably couldn't articulate it within a few minutes. And
Episode 2.
Yeah, for sure. But not a simple question. There are a lot of moving parts. The first step really is deciding what type of experience you want to offer your customers. It's an experience that aligns with your brand, who you are, what you want to be and offer as an airline, and your overall product experience in the cabin. So understanding that, knowing that is pretty much the first step. Mm-hmm. Then it's going out and working with suitable vendors and working those agreements to get the hardware and then software. Then you've got your content. So it's a mammoth, huge process to be able to bring that on board. But you need to know who you are, what you want to be, and what you want to offer. I think really is a first step in making that decision. In terms of, do I see it going to 100% bring your own device model? There are some airlines that do offer that. It works for them. It aligns with their business model, the markets that they serve. So that is out there, but there are a lot that offer more than one option for in-flight entertainment. I think longer term down the track, there will always be a place for more than one in the cabin, in the cabin. A lot will depend on the airline, the markets they serve, the customers they serve as well. So that I think there'll always be that variety of offering, but technology will come as it does at a very rapid pace and then bring new ways of doing things. But for the moment, I think it will all coexist in various shapes and forms.
That is, and I think maybe that's the theme that we'll close out on, is so much of in-flight entertainment, while we think it's really cool to me as a traveler, and it is mind-blowing to think back to that old DC-10 that I'm describing, and now I've got live TV on my plane to be able to watch, and now I get crabby if it doesn't have the particular channel that I want to watch. But how far that's evolved, but so much of it comes back to the fundamentals of customer experience, which is listening to what the customer is telling you they want, and then finding a way to implement that inside of your brand promise, your brand style, and what your brand stands for. Corinne, I've learned a lot from you today. Thank you so much for that. If folks want to learn more about in-flight entertainment, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Sure. I can be reached via my website, ifective.aero, ifectiv.aero, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to connect and talk more about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today. Learned a ton, and safe travels wherever they take you to next, Corinne.
Thanks so much, Rick. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX for CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX for CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer, every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.